If you're thinking about moving to Edmond, Oklahoma, this video is your complete guide and will include just about everything that you need to know before you make the move. My name is Kinsley and I'm a local realtor here in Edmond, Oklahoma and its surrounding areas. Whether you're thinking about moving in 10 days or 10 months, I'd love to be able to connect with you, help answer any questions, and potentially help represent you on your home purchase. I have helped people move from as far west as California, as far east as Massachusetts, and as far north as Alaska, and I would love to be able to help you too. So please feel free to reach out to me. You can give me a call, text, email, send me a DM, schedule a Google Meet so we can get connected and I can potentially help you on your move. And make sure you stay to the end because after I talk about my 10 things, I'm actually going to throw in a little bonus that is probably one of the most asked questions I get in regards to living in Oklahoma and living in Edmond. So here's everything I think would be helpful to know moving to Edmond. My husband and I moved to Edmond about 4 years ago and we absolutely love living here, and there are just some things that I think are helpful to know as you're making the move. So number one is that Edmond is not just a suburb of Oklahoma City, it is its own city with its own identity. Because it is so close to Oklahoma City, it can be easy to think that really you live in Edmond, but everything you have to do is in Oklahoma City, and that's not the case. Honestly, just about everything you could want to do is here in Edmond. It is growing every single day, new developments constantly popping up, new neighborhoods constantly popping up, and that's exciting. And with that is just adding more that the city has to offer. Again, like I said, you really could live, work, eat, shop, do just about everything in Edmond. Now, of course, there are some bigger things that you might enjoy doing that you might want to go do within Oklahoma City, but really for those everyday, day-to-day things, you can get all of that done in Edmond. Number two is that Edmond has some highly rated schools. If you start looking up on niche.com, greatschools.com, Oklahoma schools, you might find that they are not highly rated. However, if you start looking specifically with Edmond schools, they are some of the highest rated schools within the state. And that is one thing that I hear a lot of people why they end up pinpointing Edmond is because of the schools. They like Oklahoma for the appeal of the cheaper housing and things like that, but they again end up kind of honing in on Edmond because of the schools, how they're rated, and just what parents and people have to say about them. And I think it's helpful to know because every state, every city is a little different. As you're looking at Edmond specifically, Edmond for the most part is within Oklahoma County. There is no Oklahoma County school district. It is within Edmond. You have Edmond Public Schools and Deer Creek Public Schools. So as you're looking at a map, typically West Edmond tends to be Deer Creek Schools, and as you go Central and East Edmond, it tends to be Edmond Public Schools. And so that is kind of unique. And within Edmond schools, there are multiple elementary, middle, and high schools. Within Deer Creek schools, there are multiple elementary schools. There will be multiple middle schools very soon, and then there is just currently one high school, but that by no means makes it a small district. I think there are over 4,000 kids that go to the high school. So it is still a large district. They tend to do very well in sports, but they're just kind of different. And so some people move and they're open to any district. Some people move and they really want to pinpoint on one, but again, both of them tend to be highly rated when you look at some of those research websites. Number three is that housing is pretty diverse. I would say whether you are a first-time home buyer, whether you are looking in the luxury market, $1 million plus, there is something for you. And that's one thing I think is great about Oklahoma that is very different from a lot of other states is that, you know, a lot of states, if you were to try to buy a home at $200,000, it's pretty much impossible. But for here in Oklahoma, you can get sometimes a brand new construction home right around there in the 200s. And so again, we have diversity with those homes, but we also have homes that go into the 1, 2, 3 millions. Every once in a while, you'll find a crazy one over that. But there's a wide range in between. So not only do we have 200s and 2 millions, I think the average home here in Edmond tends to be around $400-ish thousand, maybe a little higher now. And so of course there's homes on both sides of that. And a lot of home builders are building here, but then you also do have those older established neighborhoods here too that tend to be more towards the center part of Edmond. And we see pretty steady appreciation. You will hear sometimes, you know, horror news and talking about housing price tanking and all that. You know, while there is a market that not everybody control, Edmond tends to have a pretty steady appreciation. We tend to be pretty consistent when maybe some other markets are kind of being a little more sporadic. Number four is that commutes are pretty reasonable for a lot of people. I've mentioned this in videos before, but I tend to not hear of people traveling more than maybe 30 minutes for work. Now, of course, it could be more than that depending on where you live and where you work, but a lot of people commutes are very reasonable. Traffic is very minimal, but I would say that for 99% of people, you really do need a car. So if you are moving from a city where you use public transportation or you walk, Everything's so spread out here. Public transportation, specifically here in Edmond, there is some, but it's not probably as in-depth as some other cities. It is really, I would say, necessary or a lot more convenient to have a car here in Edmond. Number 5 is that there is a very strong local food and coffee shop scene. That is one of our favorite things about here, honestly, is the food. And when people come and visit, we love to take them to all of our favorite restaurants. There are so many local restaurants that are, I mean, honestly, some of our favorite restaurants we've ever had. Birdie's is a place that is kind of northwest Oklahoma City, kind of getting into Edmond. That is one of a kind, best food that I think we've ever had. But so many places like that, little hole-in-the-wall places. Downtown Edmond has lots of cute little, but also very delicious places to eat. And then of course you have those coffee shops too. Some chain places, some places that are kind of local to Oklahoma, and then some that are just local to that one shop. But so many just fun places to try. And if you are coming to visit, please feel free to reach out, because I would love to send you my Visit Edmond guide, where I give you some of my favorite restaurants and favorite coffee shops. Number 6 is that it's a green city. And what I mean by that is that there are lots of parks and trails and lakes. Within Edmond, you have Arcadia Lake. You also have Lake Hefner, which is not in Edmond, but pretty close. But besides those, you have so many parks throughout the city. Some of our favorites are Hafer Park or Mitch Park. We love just going, walking around, and lots of trails. There are trails literally throughout the entire city of Edmond that, especially if you bike, that you can bike from almost like one point of Edmond all the way over to the other, just by these trails that have been connected by the city. If you are somebody who likes being outside, you like to be kind of active and do those types of things, I definitely think Edmond is a place that really helps encourage that, just by the city, and again, the way that it is kind of laid out with those trails and with all of the parks. Number 7 is that Edmond is statistically one of the safer cities within Oklahoma. I always encourage people to do their own research, go on to different websites and look up, so that you make an informed and comfortable decision for you. But if you look, you will probably find that Edmond tends to be one of the safer cities as you're looking at violent crimes and kind of as you look at those crime statistics as a whole. Number 8 is, as you're looking at the city of Edmond, you have Edmond Utilities, which covers electricity, water, I think even trash, and those tend to be very reliable. People have typically good things to say about them. But as you look at the western side of Edmond, some people call this fake Edmond, and I think part of that is because it actually has Oklahoma City utilities. And so if you are on the western side of Edmond and have Oklahoma City utilities, these tend to be cheaper. So while you don't have Edmond utilities, you have the OKC. Again, they tend to be cheaper. You're gonna have like OG&E for electric. You're gonna have Oklahoma City Trash and Water. And where I live, we have Oklahoma City Utilities, and I will say I don't mind it at all, because I like it cheaper and we find that the service is still really reliable. Number 9 is, if you are doing research into Oklahoma, because often people find I can get cheaper housing if I go to Oklahoma. When you start looking at Oklahoma, you're gonna find that Edmond is not the cheapest town in Oklahoma. In fact, it is one of the most expensive towns within Oklahoma. However, I find that even though Edmond is one of the more expensive, it's still so much more affordable than many other places around the United States. Sometimes, I've heard people say you kind of get what you pay for with Edmond, is that you might have higher prices, but you also have those higher rated schools. You do have the safety with the crime statistics. You do have all those parks and everything that just goes into making Edmond, I think, a beautiful place to live. And number 10 is that there are lots of fun things to do in Edmond. There's a lot of events that the city puts on. Herd on Herd is one of our favorites. It is from March to October, I believe those are the dates, but you have the 3rd Saturday of every month. They shut down downtown Edmond, they close off the streets, food trucks come in, shops come in, and it's really just a fun community event for the people of Edmond. You also have the farmers market every Saturday morning. That's also a little fun thing, is to go downtown and walk through the farmers market, see what the locals have for you. There is the Arts Festival that comes around, and also Liberty Fest. So just a lot of fun city events that they throw that I think really helps kind of add to that communal feel within Edmond. You also have Mitch Park at Christmas time. They have their Christmas lights, and I could honestly go on and on with all the things that the city and different parks and things have to offer. But I think if you are looking for that community involvement and things that the city puts on, it is definitely a great place for that. So that bonus item I mentioned has to do with the weather, because probably the number one question I get when people are thinking about moving is related to the weather. And do you have tornadoes? And yes, tornadoes do happen. I will say here in Edmond, I don't know if it's scientific, some people say it's random, whatever you want to think, but at least since we have lived here and what I have read statistically and historically, Edmond does not tend to see as many tornadoes as some of the other suburbs around Oklahoma City. Again, I'm not a meteorologist. I'm not giving scientific facts or anything. I'm just saying what I have observed and what I've heard people talking about. Now, Is there still the threat? Of course. And I will say one of the good things about here in Oklahoma, here in Edmond, is that you typically know it's coming. You're not typically surprised by tornadoes. You're typically aware of it, you know, a day, two, sometimes even more in advance. And so you can kind of prepare accordingly. Also, there are sirens throughout the city. So most places within the city, if we are under a tornado warning, you are going to hear the sirens going off. I wouldn't say that it's always enough to wake you up from your sleep. Where our house is located, the siren closest to us, it has woken us up. I don't typically rely on that though, but there are sirens throughout the city. Also, the weathermen are very good at tracking it. They're good at their jobs. There are storm chasers going out, constantly looking for rotations in the sky. And so I will say that does give a lot of peace of mind. I really, at this point, do not worry about tornadoes and our safety. Of course, I worry about them in the fact of if they come, they are devastating. But as far as being unprepared for them, I do not fear for being unprepared. And also many homes, not all homes, but a lot of homes here do have storm shelters. And if a home that you're looking to purchase doesn't have a storm shelter, you can get them installed from companies. They tend to be around $4,000 to $6,000. So if that is a high priority for you, I would just suggest making sure that you are budgeting for that if the home that you find doesn't have a storm shelter. So weather is a big deal. Tornadoes are dangerous, and they are, I think, deserve the respect of paying attention and being vigilant to watch for them. And for some people, that is a deal breaker. But for some people, they are okay with just kind of being on the lookout. And I will say one thing that is probably worse, at least that we have seen, isn't tornadoes as much as hail. Hail can sometimes seem to come out of nowhere. I'm sure it doesn't. I'm sure we're just not paying as much of attention. But that's kind of probably one of the more annoying things, is just the hail and oftentimes the wind. Living here for 4 years now, I'm kind of used to the wind. I don't really expect my hair to be put together because it's just usually pretty windy, but it also is kind of nice sometimes when it gets really hot. And so weather's a big thing. And if you have more specific questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I know that moving's a big deal, and when you think about that big factor, it can really be a deal breaker for some. So please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you so much for watching to the end of this video. I hope that it was helpful, and I will catch you in my next one.